right, let's call to order this Board of Franklin County Commissioners meeting for Wednesday, March 10th.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Present.
Commissioner Harris?
Present.
Chair Waitmeyer?
Present.
Vice Chair Dickinson?
Present.
Commissioner Dunn?
Present.
All right, now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation,
under God,
indivisible, liberty and justice.
All right, invocation today will be led by Pastor Mark Hutton of the Westminster Presbyterian Church in Ottawa.
Good morning, distinguished commissioners. Let us pray. Divine Creator, we come to you this day with thanks for the blessing of another day that you have given us, for the blessing of the families and the community that we love and serve. God, we give you thanks for the joy of Ottawa and Franklin County and all who live within it. God, I pray for our commissioners, that you would guide them, that they would discern your will, and that you would lead them into how to best serve our community, that you would give them wisdom to answer the questions and to make the decisions that are before them. God, I pray for those who continue to work on the front line, those serving us in the COVID relief. And God, I give you thanks for the Franklin County Health Department workers who have worked so hard and done so well in preparing tests and working through mask orders and things like that. We give you thanks and pray that they might be energized and that they might be well. God, we pray for all those who are dealing with the loss of loved ones, but I'm especially mindful this day of the Brooks and Bowman families. May you sustain them and give them a sense of your presence, and may you comfort them. God, may you watch over all of Franklin County residents, especially our first responders, keeping them safe. We give you thanks and praise for the blessing of this day and for the blessing of your presence in our lives. We pray this in Jesus' name, amen.
All right, thank you, Pastor Hutton.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, correspondence and organizational business.
Yeah, Colt, I have asked, I had a meeting yesterday with Dr. Budd, Chief Robbins, and Casey just to discuss a couple of things we talked briefly at the retreat about were the potential of going back to meetings in person, as well as what to do with the visitor center in terms of, do we want to open it back up for tourists? And so I had the discussion with Dr. Budd and asked him to be on the call today to share his thoughts with the board. So, Dr. Budd, are you there?
I'm here.
All right.
Yeah.
Good morning.
So we talked about the visitor center, and I know there are some people who are eager to open it back up, but I think we are, it's a little preliminary. You know, the CDC is still recommending limiting travel to necessary travel, and I don't see this as a very important thing to do right now. I know people are interested in doing it, but I think we need to hold off a few months. We have to see what's going to happen with the variant strains of this virus and see if we have another surge. And I think we will have a better idea about that within a few weeks or a couple of months anyway. So I think it is premature to open the visitor center.
Now, Dr. Budd, I do want to ask you a couple questions. One of the things that, I've talked to a couple volunteers and they tell me, that they've all received their first and second shots. And certainly I understand that, but my understanding is the vaccine doesn't necessarily prevent you from carrying and spreading the virus to others. Is that correct?
That's correct. It should prevent the vaccinated from getting ill, but it does not prevent the colonization of the virus, in the airway and potentially spreading it. That will be sorted out later, I think, but at this point, I think we have to assume that's the case.
And so would you agree that by opening that center, we're inviting people from outside of our community whom we obviously have no control over, have no idea whether they've been vaccinated? We're inviting them into an environment where they could still infect our staff and volunteers, and then of course the volunteers could then proceed to spread it throughout the community. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, for the commissioners, the date that Dr. Budd brought up, at least as a date to reassess this, is sometime around that first part of May. Do any of the five of you have any issues with just taking his counsel on this and waiting until then to reassess?
As Don, I'm fine with it.
It certainly makes sense that, we're lucky that here our positivity rate's really gone down. It's my understanding not all communities are as lucky, and maybe the wisdom of opening a facility for the express reason of bringing people from other communities into ours may not be the wisest thing right now. So I'm good with that.
Yes, Commissioner Dunn, I'm okay with waiting a little while.
Mr. Harris, I'm good with it.
Mr. Dickinson also, yes.
And then the thank you all for chiming in there. And then Dr. Budd, we had also spoke about county commissioner board meetings just like this one this morning. What are your thoughts on going back in person or other alternatives that we may have?
I think I think you can have a modified board meeting. You could have the board meet, I think, if people maintain the precautions that we've become used to, mask wearing, social distancing, hand washing. I think the board themselves could certainly meet, and I think it would be reasonable for county employees who have issues to bring before the board to be there in person. I would advise against opening the meetings to the general public. I actually had a meeting with the city commissioners, and they are planning a similar approach. And I think it is a reasonable one. So you can spread out pretty carefully in the commission meeting room there. And I think we could maintain safety that way. And again, I think over the period of the next couple of months, I think we'll see an increased use of the vaccine, and I think it will become safer, and we'll see if in fact these variant forms of the virus are becoming a problem. And again, in a couple of months, I think we could reassess and see if we could get back to a more normal open meeting.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I need to paraphrase Dr. Budd there. I think he spoke for himself there. Do the commissioners have any thoughts on that? I mean, what are your thoughts about bringing the board and staff back in, but just continuing to keep the meetings just dial in only for the public?
Commissioner Dan, I can go either way.
Commissioner Dickinson, that is what the city's doing. They're only allowing the commissioners and the department heads that need to be there to be in the building, and they're using the the auditorium to do it, so they can definitely spread out. If we can do it without having a problem not allowing the public in, I would like to do that.
Well, I think the important thing is we have to allow public access to the meeting. I mean, it's effectively the public would have the exact same access that they are having right now. I mean, we are having open meetings right now. This is an open meeting, and there will continue to be open meetings using much the same mechanism. The only difference would be, you know, the 5 of you and select county staff would be in the room. But it would it would be open just like it is now.
All right. Yeah, either that or some very limited, capacities, but I understand that's problematic once you reach that capacity and managing that. So, I could go with that.
I'm all right with it.
All right.
Okay, well, Colt, I apologize. I'm not trying to step on your toes, but I just want to make sure that I have clear direction, that I am not hearing any of the 5 of you object to that. And so we'll plan on the board and select staff effective. I mean, we can do it as soon as next week, starting to gather in person. We will continue to invite the public to call in as they so desire, and then we'll just monitor the situation and just see if any of these variants take hold, and certainly talk to Dr. Budd multiple times a week. He's not far away, and so we'll just see how this goes for now, and then just wait and see.
All right, do we want to set a time to go ahead and reevaluate that so that, if anyone is concerned about calling in and the precedent or the situation there, we can at least give them a date when we'll reconsider that?
I would say May 1st or something like that, 1st of May.
Okay.
It sounds reasonable to me anyway, at least to reconsider that.
Yeah, no, I think it's just good to have a date that we can, if anybody is concerned about that or upset about that, we can at least tell them, well, we'll reconsider it at this date. It's not indefinite, so. All right. Anything else we need to run by the doctor?
I don't believe so, but Dr. Budd, thank you for being on the call, and thank you for, I don't know that we give you enough credit. You've been so incredibly responsive to both Nick and I, and frankly, the entire COVID team, and I can't really imagine where we'd be without your guidance. So, and I know that you've got a day full of patience, and you're just so willing to work us in, and definitely appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate the cooperation, and the commissioners have made this really relatively easy to do. I mean, it's been, considering all the difficulties associated with this, and the cooperation of the commissioners has really been valuable. So thank you all.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Doc. All right, so we're going to move down to, do we have any public comment?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. Consent agenda today would include meeting minutes from the 3rd and tax change orders in the amount of $92.28. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
It's Don, make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Dunn, second.
Commissioner Stottlemyre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. Items of business, first of which is to discuss the enforcement and continued education of the burn permit resolution. Alan, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, first off, I know we discussed this last week and wanted to have further discussion. I see we've got Derek has talked with our county attorney, Brandon Jones, and Sheriff Richards is on here also, which are involved on the enforcement side of it. But just to give you kind of a perspective or an update of where we're at since last Monday, starting March the 1st, we've had 311 permits issued for burning. And on the 6th, which was Saturday, 110 of those permits were just that day. Our fire departments have been very busy the last week with these dry conditions, and hopefully that's going to change starting tomorrow. But we have also had a burn ban on since Sunday. So the last 4 days, there's not been any burning. So really just last week, we had 300 permits issued. All of our fire departments were out and actively putting out burns that got out of control. Saying that though, and I relayed this to Derek and to, I believe to County Attorney Brandon Jones yesterday or day before, I only know of one of those that might have been considered a violation. Most of them, the people are doing a good job. I know the fire departments are continuing to assist the people and educating them. I know we've had a few calls in the evenings after the sun goes down, but those again are in my, the way I interpret the open burning regulations. They started those fires before dark and had a circle all the way around that field, and it was just burning inside the contained area when we were called. I think there was last night also a brush pile that caught fire, and I don't know where it was at other than in the LOH fire district. But we've had fire calls even with the burn ban on since Sunday, and in listening to the radio on all that traffic, those have been rekindles from controlled burns that were mainly on Saturday or Friday of last week. So with that, Derek, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, not necessarily. The board had a lot of questions last week, and so many of them pertain to enforcement, which is why I wanted to get Brandon on the phone. So I may just pose a hypothetical here and let you and Brandon kind of walk us through what that would look like. So let's say we have a no burn day, a burn ban in effect, and someone just blatantly ignores it and tries to do a controlled burn and ends up burning a structure down. And let's say that Alan, you and the rural fire departments believe that this is something that needs to be prosecuted. Like, how does that process work? And then Brandon, once it reaches your office, what potential penalties would be there that you could use?
Well, for me, using that as an example, the fire departments have all been in meetings. We have discussed just that example on a no burn day, and that's really the days that conditions are extremely dangerous for the fire to get out of control and for our firefighters to contain it. And that's the part where they really want the enforcement to be there if needed. And they would request a deputy to come to the scene, and then the deputy would do an investigation and determine which, if it's a no burn day, it's already violated the permit. So with that, the information would be gathered and then handed over to the county attorney. And I would ask Sheriff Richards to add into that if there's anything else that the sheriff's department would do, because I know we would also have witnesses of the fire department that would be needed to come into court also.
Yeah, Alan, we would be taking statements from the fire department, as well as any witnesses or people that were involved in that burn. But on these, lots of times we have to take some guidance from the fire crew that's out there. So whoever the chief is or whoever's in charge of that fire crew, they've got better understanding of that. They know how these people have been educated, and the fire departments have done it. Like you said, they've done a good job with talking to everybody on that. So we understand what is going on there. We're not over eager to go out and do enforcement, but if it comes to that point to where they believe that that's what needs to happen, then that's what we're there for.
Then this is Brandon. As far as my office goes, once the investigation's complete by the sheriff's department and fire departments, they'll forward it to me for prosecution. We would look at it under the burn ban stat or resolution. That's a class B misdemeanor, punishable by up to 6 months in the county jail or up to $1,000 fine. And then there's specific language that says that the fire departments can be reimbursed for any cost that they incurred trying to control the fire that was in violation of the ban. Usually on these burn bans, if they get sent to us, we'll try to divert the person, give them a diversion so they can avoid a conviction, assuming that it's not egregious. Or our main thing is to educate and to try to make sure that people understand that they are held accountable, but we don't really want to give them a criminal record to some farmer who's just trying to burn off his field and makes a mistake. So a lot of times we'll do diversions. But if you're talking about the situation where a structure burns, you could potentially be looking at an arson charge, although that requires knowing conduct, that the act was done knowingly. That's usually not going to be the case. It's usually going to be an accident, but they could be looking at that charge, which would be serious. That's a felony. And if they did burn a structure, it would be something we probably wouldn't divert. We'd probably be looking more at convicting them of that misdemeanor and giving them some type of fine. And definitely we would want to get reimbursement to the fire departments that had to expend resources to be out there controlling the fire.
So to kind of recap, Alan brought this to us, I think it was last week, but the resolution already exists and there's already mechanisms in it to enforce it. But he was more or less advising us that, especially on the wishes of the rural fire departments, and we're going to start, or the county's going to start enforcing these a little more. It sounds like right now we're really just going after the more negligent and reckless cases, and then trying to get compliance on the no burn day.
Well, this is Derek. I would say that's exactly right. And as Alan demonstrated kind of at the beginning of this item, I mean, we've had, hundreds of burns and arguably one case, and it sounds like that was arguable. So in the vast majority of these, it's not an issue. But there was a lot of good questions there the other day, and so I would just ask the rest of the commissioners, you basically have everyone who is involved in this process is on the phone. You've got Alan, you've got the sheriff, you've got the county attorney. So certainly if you have any questions about this process, now's a great time to ask.
This is Commissioner Harris. I guess one of my questions is it public knowledge for like the reimbursement cost of how much it would be for like per man hour or per a grass truck or per a tanker truck, where it's not variable, that's just what they're going to get charged?
Commissioner Harris, I've talked with all the fire chiefs and I have asked them that it's set across the county and for us to use the FEMA cost codes, and we would use the state reimbursement rate for the volunteer hours, which I believe is $22 or $23 an hour. And then there is a set cost code for the equipment that would be used to extinguish or contain that fire.
Okay, thank you.
This is Commissioner Dickinson. I think one of our questions at the meeting was, is there a stone into it? Do you start with a warning? Do you kind of move into it, or if it's a grievous, do you just go right to the charging?
Well, I think I can answer that again. In talking with the fire chiefs, and this is something we do yearly. As you know, we've got 8 rural fire departments. We have boards or either townships or districts that are in charge of those. And in working with them, they have expressed that there's a few people in the county that have just continuously ignored any type of permit. And those are the ones that if the fire does get out of control, I don't think they go out looking for them, but those would be ones they're aware of and would like to see the penalty section enforced. And I can also tell you that just last week, I know of 3 or 4 fires where we've had outbuildings and abandoned homes or mobile homes that have burned from controlled burn that got out of control in at least 3 different fires that I'm aware of.
And this is Derek, and I would add to that for IN. I think like so many things, it just depends on the facts. I mean, I certainly am not a law enforcement officer, but I tend to think of, a speeding analogy that if I'm heading down 59 towards Richmond and, let's say I'm doing 77 and a 65, I may get a ticket, but I also may get a warning. But if I'm in my Toyota Camry and I'm doing 120 down 59, there's a decent chance that is automatically a ticket, if not, felony speeding. And so I think these are all fact-specific things, and certainly, believe in the judgment of our personnel to make those. So.
This is Don. I know it says about the burn permit system for 20 years. I guess I've been around since the very endorsement of it 20 years ago, and it's always been the problem of trying to educate everybody and get to the source of, like we're speaking today. I understand totally, but it would be a good subject. I know we can't do it now. I know it has to be later when things are better, but this would be a good subject for everybody in the same room that's involved, with representatives from the fire departments and even the towns around, to get affected by it. To all be in the same room, hear the same questions asked, hear the same answers, and I know the true education is the public, and I know that's totally hard to do, but at least it'd be nice. I know it's even been from one fire department to another, and what are we doing and what's happening and what can we do? I know Alan does a good job of informing them, but it's not like being in one room with everybody involved that could make a decision one way or another. And actually hear it come from the sheriff publicly, and hear it come from the county attorney publicly, maybe even voice opinion of the commissioners and administrator. But I know it's something we can't do now, but after being around for this many years, and we're still dealing with, evidently we're not really getting the 100% education out there. And I think that's always been the question. That's all I have.
This is Commissioner Dickinson, and just for clarification, if I have a burn permit and I'm trying to do it the way I'm supposed to be, but some way it gets out of hand, or the weather changes and something happens, those are not the kind of people that we're trying to prosecute. I mean, we understand that sometimes those things happen. Is that correct?
Well, that is correct, and that's happened multiple times this last week. And there again, like I said, there's 8 different fire districts, and it depends on the circumstance as to what damage occurs. I know I took a phone call yesterday from a neighbor from a controlled burn, and they were wanting to know what they could do about some damage to some fence posts. And I referred them for civil action with their neighbor if that's what they felt needed to happen.
All right.
This is Commissioner Dickinson. We just don't want people not to call, you know, thinking that if they call, then they're going to have to pay for response. That's not what we're trying to do here.
We have actually had, Commissioner Dickinson, we've actually had people that have been in control of their fires that have been the reporting party to the 911 dispatch center. And you're exactly right. We'd rather get out there and help them early than have a large fire. And I think that's actually occurring. And I think now that we're getting the statistics with this online permit, we're able to see a lot of the things that 2 years ago we thought were just speculations, and we now have what's actually going on. And I can tell you the burn permit system is working very well, because on these calls, we get information from the dispatch center to our fire departments that tells them whether it's a passerby or it's the person in control of the fire. We have the phone number of the person in control of the fire if the fire department or dispatch needs to call them. And I continually hear in the last week, the fire department's asking more information and receiving that than we had before. So we know there's controlled burns at a certain spot on our maps, and all the fire departments look at those. Dispatch monitors those too to be able to tell us. So the information that we're getting and the way things are going is working very well. And I know there's a few that still, we have people moving into the county all the time and need education. That has to continue. But I think the way we're going right now is the way we should be going, and it's working very well.
Yeah, I'm happy going into this, and with the update we received today, I don't think anybody has any qualms over going after the most negligent and reckless cases. That's not the issue. Got a lot of comfort after hearing County Attorney Jones just speak about, I think, his very reasonable approach to just seeking public safety, not to aggressively punish after the fact, and that does little to rectify a minor violation, but to get compliance and educate, and again, the goal's safety. So I think we're headed into this with a healthy approach, and I'm happy. And any other questions from commissioners while we have everybody? All right. There's no action on this item. It's just a discussion. So, all right. County Attorney Jones, do you have anything? I understand you may have court or some other things. Do you have anything you need any updates you want to give? I want to be respectful of your time.
No, yeah, sure. Derek asked if I just maybe kind of give an update to the commissioners on what's going on in my office. I know I don't come to these meetings on a regular basis, so just kind of want to let you guys know that as of the second week of January, we went live with our new prosecution case management software. It's called Prosecutor by Carpel, or PBK for short. We were able to pay for that entirely with CARES Act's money, which was huge savings for the county. I think it ended up costing about $80,000 for the software. And the reason we qualified for the CARES Act is it will allow us to work remotely. It's an internet-based product, and our goal is to go completely paperless in my office. For years, our office, along with all prosecutors' offices and pretty much every law office, when you had a case, you create a paper file, and that would contain all your legal documents, all your court notes, everything would be in those files. When we go to court, if you go into the courtrooms and see our dockets on Wednesday mornings or Monday afternoons, at our table, we'd have huge buckets just full of files. I mean, I'd have days where I'd have, on a Wednesday, we'd have 100 case files on the table. When our office was over in the county attorney, the courthouse, that was obviously easier to get those in there. Well, since moving over here, it's kind of a pain in the rear loading up. You know, I had a couple times where I had 3 or 4 buckets of files I'm loading in my car and dragging over and setting up. And then of course there's the cost of creating the files. The actual files themselves are expensive, the dividers, and then all the cost of paper and everything. We are completely eliminating that. And I've been going to court for the last several weeks. All I'm doing is taking my laptop, my Surface Pro laptop, and from that I have access to every case. The other problem is we have all the cases that are scheduled for the docket, but it's not at all uncommon for us to have what we call walk-ins, people who miss court or show up on the wrong date. When that happened before, we would be sitting there blind because we wouldn't have the file, we wouldn't know anything about it. We'd have to call the office, have someone drive it over to us at court, and it'd slow the process down. With our new system, everything's in the computer system. As long as we have access to reliable internet, we have access to our system. It contains our complaints, all of our filings, pleadings, all of our case notes, everything we need is right there at our fingertips. So if we have a walk-in come in, as long as we have his name or her name or the case number, we can type it in and go right to the case, find out what's going on, and be able to handle that case right there on the spot. It's gonna, I mean, I used to hear our printer running like basically all day long. I'd hear it. Someone was copying or printing, and now I'll go hours without hearing our printer even kick on, because we're almost we're not completely paperless. You're never going to be completely paperless, but we are darn near paperless. My goal was to have all of our paper files scanned and converted. A lot of them, the information was already in our old case management system. And I probably should talk about that. One of the big reasons for this is our old case management system came in place back, I think, in 2012. And it was the prosecutor module to the court's management system. It was called full case. When the court switched to full court, they kind of pushed a product on prosecutors all across the state called full case. And it was never a very good product. It wouldn't allow us to go paperless in court. And it wasn't made by prosecutors, but we kind of got forced to use it. Well, here, just before Christmas, the court switched over to their new program called Odyssey, and it completely broke our connection, making basically full case essentially worthless. So I was already wanting to jump to a better system anyhow, just because of the limitations of full case would never allow us to go completely paperless. But when the court made the break, it basically made our product worthless. And so this new system solved 2 solutions. Basically, it got us away from them and away from our dependence upon their system, and then also made it to where we could go paperless. So that's kind of where we are. When we converted over, a lot of the stuff did convert over paperlessly from full case into our new system. But there are other things like our handwritten court notes and stuff that we still have to manually scan in and enter them into our new system. My goal is to have that completely done, I'm hoping, by June, so that we can have all of our files basically cleared out of our office. And when you come to our office, you won't see a file anymore. Everything's completely wireless and paperless. Other nice things are like when a defense attorney calls and wants to talk about a case, I'd have to have the support staff pull the case, bring it to me, you know, why the defense attorney sat on hold, so I could know what I was talking about, because I don't have all my cases memorized. Now they can just put them straight through to me. I can type in the case name, and it pops right up on my screen. A couple other things is it gives us access to anyone else in the state that uses this program, which Allen County, Anderson County, I know just today, Ness County went with this product. We can see defendants in their, if we share defendants, we can see their cases in their counties as well. So if I'm charging someone here in Franklin County, I can see if they've been charged in Anderson County as well. And as more counties are looking to make a change for the same reason we did, more counties are going with this product. We'll be able to see across the state, be able to better see what other counties are doing. So I guess I want to thank you guys for whoever was in charge of helping approve the CARES Act funds for this. We are up and running after a week of training, the second week of January, and we're moving forward with this, and it really is a great product. Initially, I said it's going to slow us down a little bit before it speeds us up, because everyone had to learn the new system, and we're still in the process of trying to convert over everything. So right now, for some aspects, it slows us down a little bit, but we're already, everyone's getting it down, and I think by a year from now, we're going to be in such a better position. The other update I would give is that back in May, I hired a new attorney who had just graduated law school. He passed the bar this summer, but we had a heck of a time with COVID causing slowdowns in Topeka of getting him, even though he passed, he took actually the Missouri bar and was licensed, trying to get him sworn in Kansas. But that finally happened in early January as well. So we're back up to full speed with 4 attorneys here. Plus, I finished my job in Anderson County, and as of January the 11th, I'm full-time. This is my only county here, so we are now full speed ahead here, and things are going well. The last thing I'll tell you is that, so since basically late May, early June, we've been back in court, doing court. Judge Kimball does everything by Zoom unless it's a evidentiary hearing. So the only time we're actually in the courtroom when Judge Kimball's court is if we're doing a trial or a preliminary hearing or a motions hearing. But most of the time it's all Zoom. Judge Whitteman, we have been in person in his courtroom since June. So we do go into the courtroom with social distancing and no participants allowed. They all wear masks. The sanitation of the tables are wiped down between each defendant. But we are business as usual on everything in the court system now, with one exception, and that's jury trials. We finally did get our jury trial plan approved, which my understanding is it involves us using the Ottawa Municipal Auditorium. But until we get more shots in arms and basically kind of get to more a herd immunity across the population, I know the courts don't feel comfortable with pulling a bunch of jurors and putting them together to try to pick a jury. Because to pick a felony jury, you need to call at least 50, or likely 75 to 100 people for a major felony case. So that's the one thing we haven't been doing is jury trials. And what's happened is those have all been stacking up on us. At one point, we were up to about 40 jury trials that were stacked up waiting, which is kind of unprecedented. But we actually had a retired judge from Johnson County came in and did a criminal mediation 2 Fridays ago. It's something I've never been involved in. And through that, we were able to resolve 10 cases. So that got us down to about 30 jury trials. Speedy trial, statutory speedy trial right now is stayed under the emergency orders. That ends at the end of this month. But I'm the president right now of the Kansas County and District Attorney Association, and myself, along with the Sedgwick County District Attorney and Johnson County District Attorney, have testified in both the House Judiciary and Senate Judiciary, trying to pass a change to that law to basically give a 3-year stay to statutory speedy trial, so that it'll give prosecutors across the state a chance to work down the backlog. In Sedgwick County alone, they have, at last count, 115 people in their jail charged with some level of homicide. We're insane, but basically if the limits got lifted, or whatever, the stay on speedy trial got lifted, they'd have 150 days to try those 115 people. And that's absolutely impossible. So we're trying to work with the House and the Senate up in Topeka to try to get something done on that. But other than jury trials, we're business as usual here, other than the fact that normally we're in the court with huge courtrooms full of people, and now most of it's by Zoom, or if we're in the courtroom, it's with limited participation. So that's my update. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions anyone has for me.
So this is Commissioner Dickinson, so if I'm an inmate and I'm waiting for a jury trial, I'm just sitting in jail?
Unfortunately, yes. Yep. If you're in jail, and what we've done, the sheriff and I, along with the chief of police, back in March, and I think again in April, when this whole thing started, and we reduced people's bonds and let pretty much anyone out of jail that we thought we could, and still keep the community safe. And we have tried our hardest to make plea offers, do anything we can to try to get cases resolved, to get cases moving forward. But yes, if you're charged with a serious crime and you're in jail because we don't think you're safe to be in the community, unfortunately right now you just have to sit and wait. Had a guy on Monday who we got with a large amount of methamphetamine in front of the courthouse, and he's been in for 13 months now. And I feel bad. I mean, obviously he's the one that got himself in the position to be there, but just with the pandemic, it's just, there's nothing we can do about it right now.
All right.
Colt, this is Derek. Before we let Brandon go, Brandon, how long have you been back at Franklin County?
I started here in November of 18.
Okay, so So Brandon's been here since November of 18, and for the lion's share of that, he's also been the Anderson County attorney. But not one time, not a single time have I gotten a complaint from a member of the public. I've not gotten a complaint from one of Brandon's staff. I literally have not heard a single bad thing about Brandon Jones and how he's ran the county attorney's office. And I think the board understands that I'm a natural repository for complaints like that. So I would hear if there were issues, and I think he has just done an outstanding job, and certainly the county is lucky to have him. So, Brandon, you and I obviously interact very little, and that, is because you clearly are on top of things. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking some time this morning to give a board an update. That was very informative. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Definitely. Glad we were able to find some opportunity there with the CARES Act funds, and it sounds like it's money well spent. And indeed do appreciate the update. Anyone else before we look to move on? All right, well, thank you, Brandon. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all. I appreciate you allowing me to speak to you. You guys have a good day.
You too.
Okay.
All right, our next 6 items lie with the Planning and Zoning Department. Larry Walrod is our Planning and Zoning Director. Larry, before we start, do any of these have public comment that you know of, or Janet, do you know?
I haven't received any requests, but I don't know whether Janet's received anything or not.
I don't see anyone on our call that's not a staff member.
Okay, good to know. I don't want to, sometimes it happens and I don't want to skip over anybody, so. All right, item number 2 is a rezoning application. Go ahead, Larry.
Mr. Chairman, as you've indicated, this is a request to rezone approximately 4¼ acres from an A1 agricultural zoning district to the R3A. This is the zoning district that most fits the situation. It's less than 5 acres, so it doesn't qualify for the RE zoning. So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was getting some feedback here, and I wasn't certain. Anyway, the Planning Commission did consider this back in November and has recommended approval of this rezoning request. And the reason that it's taken so long is that the legal description has to be prepared by a licensed surveyor. And frankly, it's been a bad situation wherein we only have a limited number of surveyors that have been willing to come to Franklin County. We lost several of the surveyors a few years ago, and consequently, we've only had a couple of surveyors, and they've got backlogs like you wouldn't believe. And then Mr. Cates had open heart surgery, so that kind of took him out of the surveying business for a little while. Anyway, we've had a lot of complaints on the time frame, and I'm surprised that the county commissioners hasn't heard on this, but we've worked desperately in trying to get other surveyors into the county now. I think we're on track, and we hope that we can move these at a little faster pace. But it's, like I said, we have to apologize that it takes so long, or did take so long from November to March to have the final conclusion for this rezoning request. And it's a fairly simple, straightforward request. Purpose for the rezoning was to create a tract of land so that a relative could build a new home. And like I indicated, the Planning Commission has forwarded a recommendation to you for the approval of this, and ask that you adopt a motion to support the rezoning as they have recommended, and to direct staff to modify our zoning maps accordingly.
All right. Any questions for Larry? Would anyone care to make a motion to approve the rezoning application 2010-1806? That rezones about approximately 4.24 acres from an A1 to an R3A zoning district and amend our zoning map accordingly.
Commissioner Dickinson, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Harris, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes, third item of business, also a rezoning application. Go ahead, Larry.
This is a request to rezone approximately 30 acres from the A1 to the A2 zoning district. The reason that it has to go to the A2 is it no longer meets the minimum requirements for the A1, which is 40 acres. Again, this was one that was delayed pretty significant amount of time. The original application was going to be done as a lot split. But when they got the final decision made of what properties they wanted to sell, they took a piece right out of the middle of a much larger tract of land, and it created now 3 tracts of land rather than just 2 tracts that would normally be created with the typical lot split. Our subdivision regulations require that anything more than 1 land division requires a subdivision plat. So they had to start all over again with their surveying and survey the entire site and create legal descriptions for 3 lots rather than just the 2 lots that they had originally anticipated with the initial rezoning request. And consequently, there's a long delay in getting that accomplished. But the Planning Commission also has forwarded a recommendation for you on this matter to approve the rezoning request and to direct staff to modify our official zoning map accordingly. I have nothing further to add unless any of you have questions.
All right, I don't hear any. Does anyone care to make a motion to approve application 2101-1823 and amend our zoning map accordingly?
Commissioner Dunn, motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre,
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer.
Yes. All right, fourth item is a approval of a final plat.
This matter is related to the application that you've just acted on. This is the subdivision that will divide the property into the 3 tracts of land that we just described. That includes the one that you just considered for rezoning. Again, it's a very straightforward situation where it does comply with all of our requirements for both the zoning as well as the subdivision regulations. And therefore, the county Planning Commission has approved this and have forwarded to you for your signature and acceptance of any easements or right-of-ways that are shown on the face of that plat. Again, I have nothing further to add unless any of you have questions.
All right. Pretty straightforward and necessitated by our previous action. So affirmative action on this item would be to authorize the chairman to endorse the final plat of the Ellis Terrace subdivision and accept all easements and right-of-ways shown on the plat. And I get a motion.
Commissioner Dickinson, I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Dunn, second.
Commissioner Dickinson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer.
Yes. All right, item 5 is a special use permit. Go ahead, Larry.
The Judd Ranch has made an application to operate a rock quarry. This is out in the extreme western part of the county. The applicants in this case have been quarrying some rock for their own personal use, primarily to cover the entrance and driveways that they use for their feeding areas of their various feeding sites throughout their holdings. And they have decided that to offset that cost, they would prefer then to open this to the public and sell some materials to offset the cost of having operate the quarry for their own purposes. They have submitted the applications under the State Mining Act to the State Conservation Commission. And this is just using a portion of the 80 acres that's described, I think, in the staff report, and it's shown on some of the aerials that are attached, but it's basically that you can see where their quarrying operation is if you look at the aerial photo, and that's right along Osborne Road. Portions of that Osborne Road just west of this site are minimum maintenance roads, so there's very little traffic that will be involved here. Unfortunately, there are some hills out here that David Lee has looked at very carefully and is going to work with them on trying to get better entrance and exit for the trucks going in and out of the site. That was the only issue that the Planning Commission had very much discussion on. We gave notice to 4 surrounding property owners. So the reason that there were only 4 is that the Judd Ranch owns most of the land that's immediately in the vicinity of this proposed rock quarry operation. The Planning Commission did, after a considerable amount of discussion on the access, did approve this, subject to the findings and the conditions that are set forth in the draft resolution, which is part of your staff report. I'd be happy to respond to any of those that you might have questions on, but I think most of these are applicable to the quarries that we have already approved throughout the county in the last 10 years. And then I don't know if there's anything unusual other than David really wants to be involved in addressing the entrance and exit for the trucking as it comes on to Osborne. I have nothing further to add unless any of you have questions.
Were the applicant and Public Works able to come to a resolution on the entrance and exit, or what's the status there?
I think that they are agreeable that they want to cut their property down a little bit so that there is less grade coming off onto their property onto Osborne Road, and that will definitely be a big help because that allows them to get better sight distance, even though there's very, very little traffic that will be out this far west on that road because it becomes a minimum maintenance road just a little ways west of the proposed quarry site.
Right.
This is Commissioner Dunn. I got one question, Larry. Number 15 on the special use requirements.
Mm-hmm.
It says that the special use goes with the land, and about all these commercial ones, they usually go with the owner. So in this case, is that how they do quarries? It looks like they could sell it, and the new owner of that land could just start quarrying without any any reason to come to the Planning and Zoning Commission again to get a special use permit. And I wonder if this is a different way of handling quarries.
No, this is exactly the same way that the last 3 have been opened. The reason for that is that they will be subject to all of these operational conditions. And if they fail to comply with those conditions, then this matter will be brought back before the Planning Commission to either modify the condition or to actually, in this case, if it was a severe enough situation, they would just deny the special use permit because it would no longer be in compliance with the conditions of approval. So it would have the opportunity to always come back before the Planning Commission and the county commissioners, and whether it's under your ownership or my ownership, they're still going to be subject to the conditions that were approved for the operation of the quarry.
It's Roy again. Yeah, I went out there and looked at the location, talked to the Judd boys about it, and it looked like a pretty good deal for not only them, but possibly for the county down the road. So I'm kind of familiar with what's going on out there. That's the only question I had about how they could either lease it or sell it.
Right.
And it was still be able to quarry it.
Right, but a number of these have been turned over to another leasee or different ownership, and I think an example of that was probably the one down on Neosho in Texas that was approved, and we had some issues with the courts on that matter because they felt that we had not followed the overall operations of the special use permit in the proper manner, but it was one of those that was grandfathered the old SX permit, so it had changed operators over the years, and again, it all gets back to having to comply with the conditions, and if they don't follow those conditions, then we definitely have the authority to bring those back for reconsideration.
Got one other question, Larry, while I got you. Provision number 13, the 365-day provision. Can you explain that?
Yes, that's been quite an issue, but it's in the regulations. It was adopted several years ago, prior to my coming here. So that's over 20 years ago that this has been in force in effect. The quarry operations are situations where they stockpile material. And until that stockpile is reduced to a certain level, depending on the marketability and so on, it may sit there for a year, 2 years, or whatever, but typically it's more than a year. And whereas most use permits are going to be expired if you haven't done anything for a year, when the quarry is sitting there and they've already quarried out the certain material and crushed it and it's stockpiled, doesn't mean that their operations have actually quit. It's just that they still have a stockpile of material that is their source of business. And for that reason, I think that the county commissioners several years ago adopted this particular provision, and that has to do with the way that quarries operate. They are a unique form of business. It's not something that's done every day, 365 days a year. They go in, they do their blasting, they remove a certain amount of material, they crush it, and it's stockpiled. And you may not see them back in doing any blasting, any crushing, maybe for 2 years. but that doesn't mean that their operation has ceased. So that's the reason I think that the county commissioners adopted that provision several years ago. I hope that answered it. That's the best answer that I could ever find for this, Roy. It's
Okay.
like I said, it was in place when I got here, and I understand why it was adopted in that manner.
Yeah, I think that was the issue in on the Tennessee Road one.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
Roy,
Okay. Yes.
this is Derek. You're exactly right. That was the issue on the Tennessee Road one, and the court actually upheld our provision. And in fact, that this isn't a provision that's unique to Franklin County. A lot of rock quarries across the state, or a lot of the permits granting those quarries, have a similar provision. And it's because, as Larry just said, the nature of quarries, you're not blasting all the time, you're stockpiling. And so that provision has been vetted thoroughly by courts and has been upheld. And that's because intuitively it makes sense. I mean, that's just how, other special use permits, I can think of so many examples. Well, if you don't do anything for a year, you've likely abandoned it. And so that also makes sense. But in the case of a quarry, we know because of how they stockpile that they're not always going to blast every 365 days. So very comfortable with that provision. Thank you.
Okay.
Good question, good point to clarify going into this. Anyone else? All right.
This is Roy. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
This Commissioner Harris, I'll second it.
Commissioner Dunn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson? Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. All right, down to our sixth item, which is a rezoning application.
This is a request from Mr. Shoemaker to rezone approximately 30 acres from the A1 to the A2 zoning district. This property is located east of Williamsburg on the north side of Highway 50. There were previous land divisions that were done when old Highway 50 was modified, and that divided the property, but that matter was one that was done by the state, and consequently this is considered to be a lot split rather than a subdivision plat. You'll see that there are two tracts that are created here, one being approximately 70 acres, the other is the 30 acres that we're discussing for the rezoning because it doesn't meet the minimum lot size for the A1 zone. The Planning Commission has forwarded a recommendation to you to approve this rezoning request, finding that it did satisfy the provisions of our comprehensive plan as well as all the provisions of our subdivision and zoning regulations. So they have forwarded a recommendation for you to approve this and to have the Commission to make a motion to approve the rezoning request to rezone the 30.5 acres from A1 to A2 and direct staff to amend our official zoning map accordingly. There's a survey attached with the staff report, so I think pretty self-explanatory what's being done here.
All right. Anyone care to make a motion to approve rezoning application 2101-1828 and amend the official county zoning map accordingly?
Colt, I'm going to stop you. I think did we not skip over item 6? Like Larry is describing item 7 and it's 2101-1829. I think we're conflating the two items here.
Yep. I see that now.
I see it too now.
Well, let's do 7 then. So you've explained 7 to us. did get my numbers. I was right there with you.
Well, 7 was the one that we just discussed for Mr. Shoemaker. So item 6 is the one that we skipped over.
Well, we're on 7. Let's just go ahead and run it through, and we'll drop back and get 6. So are there any questions on the rezoning application 2101-1829 Shoemaker for the 30.5 acres? Taking that from A1 to A2. Anyone care to make a motion to approve?
Commissioner Dickinson,
rezoning?
Commissioner Dickinson will second.
Need a motion. Commissioner Dickinson, you make the motion. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Dunn, second.
Everybody good with that? All right.
Commissioner Stottlemyre, how do you vote? Commissioner Stottlemyre? Commissioner Harris, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre? Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. All right. Now we'll drop back to item 6, the rezoning application for Harris.
I have to apologize for that, Mr. Chairman. We did have a correction on the resolution, and that's the reason this got out of order, I guess, is that that was the last item that we worked on yesterday afternoon, is correcting that particular resolution. It had a little error in the description of the property, so I have to apologize for not catching that, and we're ready to proceed, I guess. This is a request by Commissioner Harris to rezone approximately 4¼ acres from the A1 zoning district to the R3A single-family residential zoning district. The Planning Commission considered this at their last meeting, and we were fortunate to get a surveyor that could get out on this job rather quickly, and so we've got this scheduled for your agenda in a much quicker time frame than we've had for some of the others. So we're pleased that we're getting some other surveyors here in the county doing work and trying to get our legal descriptions prepared for your resolutions. This purpose for this is to allow for the construction of a new residence. We have reviewed it for compliance with our comprehensive plan, as well as our zoning and subdivision regulations. And the Planning Commission agrees that it does satisfy all of this criteria, and therefore have forwarded a recommendation to you to rezone this property from the A1 to the R3A zoning district, and to direct staff to modify our official zoning map accordingly.
Any questions on this rezoning? Anyone care to make a motion to approve rezoning application 2101-1828 and amend the county zoning map accordingly?
Commissioner Dunn, motion to approve.
Commissioner Dickinson, I'll second it.
Commissioner Harris, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre? Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. All right, thank you, Larry.
Well, thank you, commissioners.
All right, let's go to staff reports. Derek.
Cool, Tide. Paul Bean just informed me he has a 10 o'clock, so I want to move him to the top of the list here and let him kick us off.
Sounds great. Morning, Paul.
Good morning, commissioners, and thank you, Derek, for that. I am happy to share that my 10 o'clock is a meeting with a commercial developer out of the city that's coming down for a tour of Proximity Park and other options throughout the county. So it's a good reason to have an appointment. I wanted to have a few minutes to share with you since I really haven't given you a verbal update for quite a while, and wanted to let you know of some activities and some good things that are happening. We have a flurry of activity right now with Proximity Park, and that's good news. We have 3 active projects, and when I say active, I mean we're in discussions and having meetings pretty consistently. One of these has already had an initial site visit. They had an individual come out and they met with myself and some of the city folks and a representative from Commerce, and really liked Proximity Park, really liked our community. They looked at a couple other spots in Kansas, but we were the winner as far as Kansas, so they're looking at us now in one other location in another state. And that project would be very good. It would be probably start out with around 50 jobs and pays pretty well, but it'd be a good fit for our community. Another project I submitted that was from Commerce. It's a little bigger project. I submitted a request for information to them last week. And sometimes you submit those and you don't hear anything. And this one, we already got a response asking for a little more information. And so we filed that response yesterday. So that's always encouraging when you put together a proposal and send it in and they come back and want more information. That's a food processing company. And then we have another project that has come to us kind of mutually through a contact of mine as well as Commerce, and interested in a property here and at Proximity Park, and they're interested in a property in Wellsville. We have a phone visit with them later this afternoon with the city. And so that one popped up on the radar just about a week ago and is moving pretty rapidly. So while we don't have anything to report that's a done deal by any stretch, it's exciting to see that the activity's picking up. I think that's indicative of the attitudes of sunshine and coming out of the pandemic. I think we'll start to see more activity in that regard, but people are finding Proximity Park, so that's good news, and they're looking favorably at it compared to other places in the state of Kansas. We continue to work with the school district on workforce development. Dr. Cobbs and Stella Tharp and I are going to go through what's called an ACT Work Keys program. It's a four half-day sessions. They have a boot camp, and then it's about a year-long process. But if we can be certified as a county, as a work-ready community, that does some things for our youth and for our industry that puts our local folks, when they're applying for a job, maybe a foot above some people that have not been certified in this way through different programming. So just want you to know we continue to work with the school systems on those fronts. We also, I mentioned the NEPRIS program. Faculty at OHS will start beginning training with me in April, so we continue to work on that. Marketing is moving forward pretty well. We have a new web page for Proximity Park. It's proximity-park.com. You can look that up, and it's somewhat functional. It will link into our new website that we are building. So not all the links are hooked up yet, but it is somewhere where I can send people and they can see a video of the park and some basic information. Our website should be completed by the middle of April and go live. Currently working on content for that particular project. Our printed materials for Proximity Park and also electronic are in about 99% complete. We should have those ready, and we hope to roll all of this out in late April and have a massive marketing campaign that we'll direct to commercial developers, our folks at the state commerce department, and some targeted industries, just like our research indicated with food service, manufacturing, and logistics. So we're working on a marketing strategy to reach those, and may even work, if we're able under COVID, to host an event to invite commercial developers down and have a big event and let them see Proximity Park in Franklin County. So a lot of good activity there. And then happy just to report our membership. We try to get our membership dues collected by the end of the first quarter. We've got an 85% renewal rate at this point, and expect the ones that have not to to end up renewing. And we've got 4 new members that have joined this year that were not members last year. So a lot of good things going on, and just wanted this opportunity to share with you, and happy to answer any questions.
It's pretty easy for us to justify the help we're giving FCDC and, with everything that's going on and everything Paul's doing basically as a one-man show. We're happy to house them here in the county, and the staffing assistants for there at the front desk, but just amazing everything you're doing, Paul.
Thank you. I'm having a great time. I enjoy the opportunity very much.
And we appreciate the update, and we're going to let you get on your way to your meeting.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. That's back to you, Derek.
All right. I'll start with, as all of you are aware, we had our retreat last week. Had 2 days worth of great discussions. Said this before the retreat, I'll say it again. Obviously, not a single decision was made. And in future retreats, not a single decision will ever be made. Just an opportunity for us to have, a couple days of efficient discussions, kind of brainstorm ideas about what our goals are for the rest of the year, and feel like we accomplished that. We had great discussions about what the 2022 budget's going to potentially look like in light of pending legislation. Obviously, we had some good personnel discussions. Talked about some capital projects that we may or may not want to move forward on, and then obviously got a pretty extensive public works update. So much of what we talked about is going to come before the board at a public meeting. And you think about projects, obviously those will all come to you for approval. We will have extensive budget discussions with the board. So some things that were discussed, if not most of the things that were discussed, will ultimately find their way onto a board agenda here over the next couple months. But certainly I feel like Janet and I and Casey were very pleased from the staff level of how it went. We feel like we got good feedback, and I hope the 5 of you were pleased as well. Yesterday, we had our tax sale. Unfortunately, I had a conflict and was unable to be there, but I have spoken with our attorney who conducted it. He was very complimentary of Sheriff Richards and how he performed during the sale. I don't have a specific update other than I have heard that it was just astonishingly successful. That we had a couple properties in particular that actually sold quite high. I am happy to get a full-blown update and have it in front of you next week, but I also think that the sheriff was there. I think Commissioner Waymire was there for a bit. I think Janet was there. Before I transition into COVID, do any of you want to talk about the tax sale yesterday, just to kind of keep this efficient?
Derek, this is Jeff. I can talk a little bit to that. As said, we did sell quite a few properties, and a few of them did go for higher than what the tax bills were on them, which was good. The big concern that we had going into this was what was going to happen with the properties out at the coves, and those did sell. The city bought all of those, and so I think that that's going to help with some transition and getting those properties on the market and some building in the hopefully not too far distant future. I know that there were several developers that were there kind of just paying attention to that, and a few of those talked with the city attorney to get a little guidance as to what the city was going to do with those and how they could proceed from there. So I thought that was good, because those have been properties that we've had on the sell tax sale a couple times, and we needed something to happen with those, get those back on the rolls. So I think it was good. It was a good sale overall.
Okay, any other feedback on the tax sale?
This is Janet. I'll just echo what Jeff said, but I was in the back of the room and I did visit with one developer around the area, and he said he was very interested in those Coves properties. So he said him and some other developers that he is aware of are going to be watching those properties when the city of Ottawa is done with their business with them, and be ready to get some houses going on those fairly quickly.
It's important to know that after this tax sale, the county's involvement in the Coves is done. It's entirely up to the city, and that process henceforth, they own them, so.
Yeah. No, I would echo that, Colt, because that's something we get a lot of questions on, and I will repeat the exact same thing. At this point, the Coves are in the city's possession, and however quickly or slowly as the case may be, this process moves, that we have no bearing on that, no effect whatsoever. I mean, they are obviously could ask us for input, but I wouldn't anticipate that. I think it's their goal to make those parcels as developable as possible, and we will be certainly watching with interest, as will a lot of folks. So. All right, not hearing any more questions on the tax sale. Obviously, the county continues our COVID response. I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the meeting that had a great meeting yesterday with Nick and Dr. Bud and Casey, discussed a lot of COVID-related topics. We continue to discuss how best to go about vaccinating the remaining groups in phase 2. Certainly, we are finding that as we start to get into younger populations, we're starting to see more no-shows, which are creating scheduling conflicts. I mean, one of the great things about the 65 and older crowd is we made those appointments and those folks were there. And we had very few, relatively speaking, very few no-shows. So we really weren't scrambling. But as we've gotten into some of these other groups, your teachers and some others, we have been seeing that more, where we have appointments and then folks just don't show up. So we have built a secondary list that we are now calling, but certainly once you crack a vial, you only got so much time to administer those. So that's our most recent logistics challenge, but we're well prepared to handle it. Going to have another clinic this Saturday, and on that note, I'll turn it over to Casey, and she can maybe talk more specifically about what we hope to accomplish. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am just going to give you some quick numbers. So we have administered 4,750 doses as of first thing this morning. And so 3,340 of those are first doses and 1,410 of those were second doses. As Derek mentioned, we do have a Saturday clinic, and I believe it will be all second doses this Saturday. The health department staff will be administering another 200 first doses this week and the 330 second doses the rest of the week. So other than that, I think Derek kind of gave the update. We're working through the rest of phase 2. Oh, I do want to mention, and I know I mentioned this at the retreat, we found out that we are receiving Johnson & Johnson. We currently just received 200 doses of that, and we're working through the best way to use those vials. We kind of talked about at the retreat how we want to be cognitive of those people that may be homebound or people that we may not see or have trouble getting in for a second dose. And utilizing those vials in that way to begin with. Those vials do come in 5 doses instead of 10 doses, so it's also changed a little bit of the way we look at scheduling those. So any questions about the numbers or Johnson & Johnson?
Don't hear any.
Okay, that's all I have, Colt.
All right, thank you, Casey. Nick?
Good morning, Commission. We currently only have 14 active cases of COVID in the county, which is the lowest we've seen in a long time. Last 2 weeks are 3.69% positivity. For the month of March, we're 2.06% so far. So we're continuing to see the numbers go down. But with that, we're also seeing the testing go down as well. So I think there's quite a few cases still out there. We're just not getting those people tested. So with that, we, Dr. Ransom and myself met with ORV staff yesterday to discuss vaccinations, or I guess Rock Creek staff, and answered some of their questions on the vaccines. Had a good response from that. We discussed the Johnson & Johnson versus the Moderna, and how we can assist them with vaccinating their new staff along with their new residents. And I fully expect we will do the same thing with the other nursing facilities as well. We are seeing that they signed up for Walgreens, CVS to come in and do the vaccines, but they're only getting 3 sessions to do that. So once that's over, it'll be on the health department to work with them to see if they vaccinate through their pharmacies or utilize the health department. So a lot of moving parts there. As Casey said, we do have the Johnson & Johnson. On Friday, we plan to actually get out and catch up on our homebound individuals. Right now, we have 8 people on the list. So we're going to utilize the Johnson & Johnson brand to get out and do those. We, as Derek said, we continue to see issues as we get into the younger crowd of people showing up and getting their first dose when we schedule them. So continuing to work through that. That's really all I have on the COVID update today. I will tell you that I plan to bring an ambulance remount to you within the next couple weeks. We talked about doing it in May. An opening came up in April to get that through, so we'll have it back by fair time. So we'll be bringing that to you within the next couple weeks. Is there any questions for me?
Nick, this is Derek. I just want to jump in. You talk about you and Dr. Bud going to the nursing home. One of the things I neglected to mention, and certainly, the county's response has been full of what I would call extraordinary efforts from various folks, but we have tasked Tom Winter, Christy Hilliker, and Casey with kind of a vaccine information campaign. And so we really, just as we've all talked with folks and kind of created a portfolio of knowledge, I guess, one of the things we keep hearing is there's still some safety issues that a lot of folks are reluctant because they question the safety. And so we are trying to push as much info out as we can just about the safety of the vaccine, and that group, Tom, Christy, and Casey, did a great job creating it's a front and back, a 1-page handout that's full of fantastic information. And certainly we're going to try to get that in as many hands as we can. So I appreciate their effort and think that that's something we're going to continue to work on. I mean, probably for the rest of this year. Like, As overwhelmed as we are with phone calls, we want more. Like, we would love for that list to continue to grow in terms of folks that just want this vaccine. So I didn't want to neglect to mention their effort because certainly it's helpful. Thank you.
Excellent update. Any questions for Nick? We appreciate your time, Nick, and your efforts. Continue to get a lot of compliments on the vaccination process. So I see Dustin Corrington on the list. Dustin, do you have an update?
Yes, Commissioners. Just want to run through a few things with you. Specifically, over the last week, some of you may have seen on media, there were some significant vulnerabilities announced with Microsoft Exchange servers. And I just wanted to give the Commissioners an update to our process with that vulnerability. We were notified last Tuesday. Recommendations were to go ahead and get the systems patched as quickly as possible and start the analysis, and that's what we began on Tuesday. Both the Center for Internet Security and Microsoft announced their recommended tactics, techniques, and procedures. We went through all of those processes, and I can report back now that that analysis is complete, and we did not show any indications of any compromise of our email servers. So I'm feeling like we're in a pretty good spot regarding that. They are continuing to make new recommendations almost daily and give us new things to search for, and making sure that we stay on top of this. But I wanted to report in case any of you have been seeing that in any of your media sources and wanted to kind of get an evaluation of where we were. Right now, we are showing no signs of any compromise at all. I also wanted to go through several things. You guys have made quite the investment in our office over last year, and I kind of wanted to run down some of those for you. During the summer, you had approved us making the migration to an Office 365 platform. That project has been completed. Through the CARES funding, we had been approved for a server and storage project. The bulk of that is completed. We have 84% of our systems migrated over to that new hardware. As of about 7:15 p.m. last night, we've completed 9 audiovisual installation and upgrades to different meetings room, conference rooms, courtrooms throughout the county buildings and offices. We have deployed new virus protection. We have completed the core network project and our firewall project. So what we have currently left is a backup solution to replace our existing platform that will give us a lot longer retention on those backups. And starting mid-April, we'll be starting on our county-wide phone system replacement that will go ahead and expand our remote capabilities with our telecommunications side of the house. Those are really all the major projects that we've had going. I ran through them fairly quickly there. I can tell you that in years past, that list of things we have probably spent about 5 years working through, and we have squeezed that into the last 9 months. So we have been extremely busy, but I think this really puts us in a lot better position for protecting the county's resources. Be any questions or anything more specific that the commissioner would like to have a report out on, I'd be glad to entertain that.
Well, Colt, this is Derek, and it may be obvious to all of you, but certainly for anyone listening, the lion's share of these projects were funded using CARES Act funds. Certainly, it's easy to justify making technology upgrades during the pandemic because of how much we've come to rely on technology. And so, we're not spending property tax dollars on most of this. This is just another use of that money and another way I feel like we've been incredibly responsible with it. And then I don't say it enough. Dustin and his staff have done a fantastic job. He is not kidding. I mean, they have packed a year's worth, or years, plural, worth of work into a matter of months. And so, I want him and Adam and Heath to know that I absolutely appreciate them. And I hope that the board does too, because they've done an awesome job. So that's all I have. Certainly, if you have questions for Dustin, thank you.
Do indeed appreciate your work, and you're in unappreciated position there because we can't measure what didn't happen, and a lot of horrible things, never have happened to our IT department, but we hear about them happening other places, and it's very expensive and very troublesome for a lot of people. So.
Well, Commissioners, my belief is the best IT department is the one you don't hear about. So as long as you're not hearing about us, I believe we're doing a good job.
I agree. We still appreciate you. So. All right. Sheriff Richards, do you have any more update?
I do. First, I'd like to say last week we had celebrated Employee Appreciation Day, and I just wanted to say thank you to the board and to administration on behalf of our staff for the gifts. That was much appreciated. So thank you for thinking of the employees there. Couple other things. As you have been told many times, and you've heard it from a lot of different places, but mental health is still a huge issue in our state. And I just wanted you to know that when we are dealing with people that are in crisis, we've had to spend a lot of man hours sitting with people that are going to be an involuntary commit. We spent almost a week out at the hospital this last week waiting for a bed to open up at Osawatomie before we could do a transport. And we have a couple people that are in our jail that are waiting for Larned. And at least one of those he will be in over a year before because that's how long the wait has been for him to get there. I bring those up just for a couple of reasons. The main reason being when the commissioners, if you have the opportunity or as the opportunity presents itself and you speak with some of our elected officials in Topeka and in Washington, this is still an issue that I believe that they need to be reminded of, because funding for mental health, and not just our community, but all across the country, it really needs to be, it's an issue that needs to be addressed, and I think it has to be addressed at those levels. Working with ELC, there are possibly a few legislative adjustments that can be made in our state as far as being able to get people to treatment quicker, we think. But I will support them on that, and they're the agency to take the lead on those things. But I just wanted you to know that it's still a big issue that we are dealing with, and I'd like to, hopefully we can make some progress on that. We have a couple people in-house that are trained to basically be trauma medics. It's like a combat medic in the military. And we have received, they're called IFACs, and we got them from, they're delivered to Alan, and then we get them from him. But it's an individual first aid kit, which includes bandages and blood clot and tourniquets and things like that. But I was able to secure those for all of our staff, but we cannot issue those until they are officially trained. And so in-house, we have Jeremy Thompson and Corey Taylor, who are certified trainers to hold those classes. And we've had a couple of those already. So we're getting those out. Those are not just to help keep our staff safe, but when we're responding to incidents with traumatic injuries and things, that they will have the training and now the equipment that they need to help save lives. And so it's just some progress that we're making, and I'm glad that we have employees that take that stuff serious. Part of what we're doing when we have those classes that this year, as we've said, we are really focusing on our employee wellness and anti-fragility. And Sari Maple has come out with me to help give a wellness briefing during these classes. And we really appreciate what Sari does for us. And our staff is all very complimentary of her, and I personally appreciate that her willingness to help out and her heart for the wellness of our employees. And then the last thing I have is about the Sheriff Foundation. We did receive our annual gift from the Gibson Family Foundation, and that is this year we received a check for just over $25,000. And then just as a reminder, that is money that the foundation uses to help fund our canine program. And also along those lines, as I've mentioned in the past, one of our goals of the foundation is to build a canine training facility where we would have the obstacle course and a training environment for our canines. And the foundation had applied with the Goppert Foundation, and we have been awarded a matching grant of $60,000 to go towards that project. So at some point that will be Derek and I will need to have further conversations as to where we stand on that. But I think that's great that we're able to offer these type of services and this type of training and everything. And we're able to do that for the grant funds that are private grants. And so we're able to provide a good service to the public that way. So that's all I have on my list, and I will be happy to answer any questions that the board has for me.
All right. I'm not hearing any. Appreciate the update. And we'll move down the list. Clerk Paddock.
Thanks, Chair Waymeyer. So I just want to let you guys know that USD 289 has adopted a resolution to have a special bond election on May 19th, and we're going to be working with them on getting that all taken care of. So that's all I have for today.
All right. Commissioners' comments, board reports. Roy?
I just want to appreciate the staff administration for our retreat last Thursday and Friday. I think it really went well and was really helpful. And that's all I have.
All right. Dawn? Mr. Stottlemyre, you on?
Commissioner Stottlemyre texted me and let me know that he's having trouble with his phone. He's on here listening, but he cannot talk.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Dickinson?
I just have a couple of things. The city of Ottawa, at their study session on Monday, they talked about the surcharge that they're going to be adding to the electric bills for the extreme weather event that we had to recover about $500,000 from their customers. They are also applying for the city utility low interest loan program that's being offered by the state. It has an incredibly low interest rate. They don't know if they'll get it or not, but it will help just with it actually helps some of these small towns that absolutely have no way to pay these bills to keep them viable. And I think that was it on that one. I do have a meeting this afternoon with the 4th Judicial District Nominating Committee for Magistrate Judge in Osage County. They do have 3 nominations for that position. Lori Brashears, who is the paralegal victim witness coordinator at Coffee County Attorney's Office. Joseph Falls, who is from Lawrence but has a law office here in Ottawa. And Tanya Veneri, who has a law office in Linden. Today, we'll just be discussing the nominations, and then we'll have I think we're going to try and have an in-person to have them all come in. And then the last thing would be that it was Employee Recognition Day, and I don't think we ever say enough about how much we appreciate our employees, which we do. I think we have just a great group of employees that have just pulled together this last year, especially through COVID. But we do appreciate them and look forward to doing more for them in the future. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Harris?
Told I don't have anything to add.
All right, nor do I. Several people mentioned the retreat, and that was the only thing I would have had. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Roy. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Rod. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.